Alright guys, so take a look at this. This is a Triumph Scrambler 1200 XC, which is a 2022. As a matter of fact, all these are 2022s, which I didn't know. And the first thing, my first impression, is it seems like it's a lot bigger. I saw these on the internet and it seemed like they're really small. The other thing that's cool is the Öhlins piggyback shocks, which is pretty awesome. Alright, so let's take a look at this here. Ooh, interesting sound on this one. And let's see if I can get it into neutral. Oh, look at that. Wow. That is an awesome gear indicator. Let me see if I can adjust my mirrors before I take off. That's always kind of the crazy thing. This is a very upright, very straight bar, which is pretty interesting. Pretty comfortable. I'm actually 6'4". Wow, the clutch, not much of a, you don't have to let it out very far to get the friction zone, which is pretty awesome. Wow. This is a pretty nice bike. Whoa, I gotta be careful. This gravel is kind of loose here. Alright, so we're actually following the red arrows this time. And we can't get too lost because I have to get back before they close pretty soon. Those are the Earls that we just took out my last ride. The little sidecars, those are really cool. Those are really fun. Alright, so it's got your standard Triumph blinkers. Oh, let's see. I definitely like the clutch and the friction zone on this a lot better than some of the other ones. Does not have auto-canceling blinkers. You have to manually cancel the blinkers. Whew. I was actually getting pretty hot there, sitting around all geared up. It's a hot day out today. Alright, so first impression, pretty comfortable. You could be really big on this bike. I'm actually surprised how big it is. Really super big. Alright, so let's see, here's another red arrow. We turn right here. So one kind of thing that I do not like about this bike already, and that is the display. Oh, and the friction zone is like right there when you let out the clutch. I gotta get used to that. It's like all the bikes I've been driving lately, and you have to let the clutch out like 3 inches before you hit the friction zone. And this one, it's like right there as soon as you let it go. I've seen some that are like that. It takes a little bit to get used to them, to the friction zone being right next to the grip on the handle. But once you get used to them, I think it's a lot easier than trying to fish for the friction zone. You have to let it way out there. Alright, let's see. So we're going 45, pretty smooth for 45. Has really good suspension. You can feel the road, but it's not rough at all. Obviously, there's full wind. No wind protection at all, not even a little scoop on this one. I kind of like that little scoop on that last one. This one is just straight open wind. The mirrors, I'm not sure if I like the mirrors that much. They don't really, oh, we're turning here. We don't want to miss our turn. We need to stay on track here. Alright, so let's see how the turn is around this corner. Not too bad, not too bad. Pretty stable. It seems like seems pretty good actually. We're in top gear, going 45, and we're at let's see. Let me see this light here. I have to look at the light instead of the RPM. Alright, so yeah, I'd say it's geared pretty much like the other ones. We're about 2,000 RPM in top gear, going 45. So pretty much geared like the other Triumphs that I've been riding. So pretty good going, you know, 65, 70 as far as not winding it out too much. All right, so we're still following the red arrows here. Oh, these roundabouts, they're crazy. So yeah, it's really fun. Super fun. That's plenty of power. It's actually in sport mode. We made sure it was in sport mode before we left, which is, I'd say on these Triumphs, it gives you maybe about 30 to 40% more power in sport mode. I've actually noticed on some of the Indians, it'll give you like 50 or 60% more power moving from like a road mode to a sport mode, which is pretty amazing. You have to really be careful when you're kind of judging your the power that a motorcycle has, that you have it in the right mode. So seems pretty confident, not super confident, not like, you know, some of your cruisers, you know, your Fat Boy or your Fat Bomb are way more confident in the corners than this thing. Your Rebel 1100 way more confident, but it's not as twitchy as like some of your adventure bikes. So as far as going around the corners, it seems like you barely touch the handlebar just a little bit, and it's kind of jumps. Well, I'd say it's a little bit more sensitive to small changes in pressure than some of your other bikes going around the corners, which would be kind of good for if you're going like for off-road or something like that. Doesn't have a really good sound like a Harley. Alright, this looks familiar. I'm starting to get used to this route. So this has a lot of roundabouts, which really kind of test the curves, which is really nice going around these corners. Pretty good, not too bad. Okay, on this one, well, this is interesting. They actually put a heat shield right next to the, I guess it's right on the muffler. I had my leg right up against that heat shield on the right side. Talk about hot. I was like, what's so hot on my leg? It's the heat shield, which is an interesting place to put a heat shield. But if I move my leg away, it's not that hot. I was just rubbing my leg right on the heat shield of the muffler. That's the first time I've ever seen that before. It looks like right under the heat shield is the muffler. Seems pretty stable on the road, more stable than I thought. The seat seems pretty firm. Yeah. I don't know if it's just because I've been riding motorcycles all day, but the seat kind of hurts my butt. Seems like a pretty good stance, pretty comfortable. The first thing I'd do on this bike is I would upgrade the seat. The seat's pretty firm, not really hurting me, but yeah, I could say I'd say you probably wouldn't want to spend more than like an hour and a half on this seat. They get a little bit uncomfortable. Alright, so we're going almost 50. Okay, so one of my big complaints about this bike is the display, and there's something with the display, and I don't know if it's I think it's a combination of the tinting on my visor and the tinting in my glasses at this angle. So it's kind of weird because I can move my head just a little bit and I see the display, but when I'm looking ahead and I just kind of glance down at the display, I can't see how fast we're going or anything. I can't see anything on this. I can't see how fast we're going unless I kind of tilt my head down and look. So I don't know what it is. All Alright, so we're going 50. We're at about a little over 2,500 RPM in top gear. Oh, I wasn't sure how the railroad tracks were gonna feel. It's soaking up a lot of the bumps. So it's pretty good as far as the suspension. It's pretty surprising, actually. And believe it or not, I'm kind of just a few inches away from that heat shield, but it doesn't feel like there's as much heat coming off this engine as you'd see on the like the adventure bikes from Triumph. So, all right, so let's pick it up a little bit. Wow. Yeah. 60. We're going 60. Let's go 65. A lot of wind. Oh, full force wind. 65. Which I think the speed limit's like 50 through here, so we'll go 50. But yeah, 65. Yeah, you kind of get spoiled behind even just a little splash visor that you'd see on some of your bikes that kind of takes all the wind off your chest. This one you go like 65 and it feels like maybe it doesn't feel bad, I'd say, compared to some bikes. Some bikes you feel like you're gonna fly off the bike. This one I think because you have a pretty good stance on it, and it feels really comfortable as far as the grip on the bike and everything. So not too bad going 65 for having no wind protection at all. Alright, so there's our red arrow. We are on track. So this is kind of more of a, I'd say kind of more of an in-town cruiser versus like a highway cruiser. Like a, you know, like a big bag or something like that. Super fun though. Lots of power, lots of power. It almost feels like I could lift up the front end on this one, which is pretty wild. Once you get up there in the higher RPMs, I think just because it feels like the front end is light, it just feels like it's gonna come up. A lot of power. And a lot of times it's like the perception of power, a lot of times it's the gearing and the weight of the front end and the way you're seated and everything. But yeah, this is a fun little bike. So, one thing on this bike, which is kind of interesting, that I noticed, it seems like you have to give quite a bit of pressure to move the gas. Like I know on some bikes, you don't even have to try to move the gas. There's not like a spring on the throttle. Seems like the spring in this throttle is more than any other bike that I've actually seen, where it almost feels like my throttle hand's a little fatigued, which I've never really noticed on another bike. Pretty interesting. Yeah, it seems like on this bike, this bike is almost, it's almost like a sport bike. Oh, I just accidentally beeped the horn. But it's almost like a sport bike where you have a lot of room in the high-end RPM to where it just gives you more and more and more and more. The more you go up in RPM, it's like there's just a lot of room. It's almost like a sport bike that's been geared for the highway, which is interesting. I didn't think they were like that. So yeah, if you're driving one of these and you don't rev it up to the higher RPM, I think you would miss the potential of the bike if you didn't really get the RPMs up there. Yeah, I think you could lift the front end on this. Plenty of power. The seat's pretty firm. But yeah, I'm still on the edge with the seat. I can't decide if I like it or not. It's a different position. I think it just doesn't have much surface contact on the seat, which is like a narrower seat. Plus it's a little bit firmer, so it kind of gives you the impression that it's a little bit fatiguing on the seat, but it's not too bad. So I know some bikes by now I'd really be hurting on the seat. This one, it's a little bit uncomfortable, but it's not like really super sore on my seat, just because of how firm it is. Plus, I actually, well, the other thing is I actually just got off of those Earls with the sidecars, and those things are bouncing me around. I think I bruised my butt on that Earl. So jumping on this, then, that's another thing. If it's the first bike of the day or the last bike, this is the last bike. I've been driving bikes all day, so yeah, that could be why my butt hurts. Actually, I feel like I'm getting better as far as my rear end. So, all right, so here are the arrows. We definitely have to follow these. Pretty fun bike, super fun. I kind of wish the stability around the corners was a little bit better, but it's not bad. It's not a deal breaker. Yeah, definitely a higher RPM machine. You definitely want to rev it up to like 5,000 or 6,000 RPM before you really get that potential, before you feel like you're going to lift up the front end. It's pretty crazy. It's interesting, I drove a sport bike and I didn't really explore the higher RPM on that sport bike, and I did not realize the potential of what the higher RPM can do on some of these bikes. And some of them, like Harleys, you just don't want to go there because it just doesn't do good once you get into those higher RPMs. And then some of them, like this one, you definitely have to get up there if you want to feel the full potential of a motorcycle like this. So it's kind of nice to be in the open air without any kind of a windshield or anything once in a while, and get away from the complete wind blocking of like some of your baggers and stuff like that. It's pretty nice. So I'm in 6th gear, going 50, less than 3,000 RPM. So if we go top gear, let's see. Top gear, 3,000 RPM. Let's see where we're at here. Let me see if I can dial in the RPM, see how fast we're going. We're going about almost 60, between 55 and 60. So that's kind of the gearing on this thing. So as far as the heat on the engine, definitely better than those adventure bikes. Can't even feel it. Even though the heat shield, you just have to make sure you don't rest your leg right up against the heat shield. Whoa, I definitely felt that bump. Oh, this is where we're turning. Yeah, we don't want to miss the turns. We will be lost. Pretty nice, pretty nice, pretty nice. Would I buy this bike? Oh yeah. This is a fun bike, super fun bike. I think this bike would fit almost anybody. If you're tall or small, it just has a really good feel to it. It actually feels pretty good going back and forth like this, which is kind of surprising. So yeah, it's a really fun bike. Not really, I'd say not really like a highway cruiser, like where you'd want to go, like 80 miles an hour all day on this bike. Definitely not that kind of a bike. There's an interesting look to it, kind of like a classic, like older style kind of a look. Like almost like a timeless look to it. It's pretty fun. Probably one of the funnest bikes I've been on. I don't really have any complaints about this bike, which is kind of interesting. Sometimes you can have certain complaints about certain bikes, but I'd say in this one, not really any complaints at all. So yeah, fun bike. Pretty awesome. Alright guys, that was actually more impressive than I thought it was going to be. That is the 2022 Triumph Scrambler 1200 XC. Alright guys, that's pretty much it. Thanks for coming along. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.